You know that question that just hits you sometimes? If the universe was made by something good, then why is there so much pain and suffering? It's a question that has haunted people forever, and today we're going to dive into one of the most incredible answers ever put together.
Right? This isn't just some abstract puzzle for philosophers, it feels personal. I mean, you look around and you see so much beauty and goodness, but it's right next to all this chaos and pain. It feels like a massive contradiction right at the heart of everything.
So, we're not just looking for one simple answer today. Instead, we're going to go on a bit of an intellectual journey. We're going to trace how one specific group of thinkers, the Platonists, spent, get this, 700 years building, arguing about, and refining one of the most detailed responses to this very problem.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the Creator's Dilemma. To really get the Platonist answer, we first have to understand the exact problem they felt they absolutely had to solve.
Yeah, for the Platonists, this was not some minor issue they could just brush aside. It felt like a direct attack on their core belief that the cosmos is good and rational. So they couldn't ignore it. They had to face it head-on. And, believe it or not, their struggle to do that would end up shaping Western thought for the next 2,000 years.
So, our journey has to begin with the man himself, Plato. And his first crack at an answer all comes down to a really key difference in how you think about creation.
See, Plato's creator, who he calls the demiurge, isn't making the world from nothing. He's not a magician pulling a universe out of a hat. Think of him more like a master architect who's been given a bunch of pre-existing, chaotic materials and is trying his best to bring order to the mess that was already there. And this pre-existing stuff is far from perfect. Plato says it's messy and ruled by this blind force he calls ananke, or necessity. You can kind of think of it as just the built-in stubbornness of the physical world. The demiurge is trying to shape it all according to a perfect blueprint, but the material itself pushes back. It resists, and that limits what's even possible. And this is the absolute key for Plato. Evil wasn't created on purpose. It's not something the good demiurge wanted. It's the unavoidable side effect you get when you work with imperfect materials. It's like the crack in a beautiful piece of pottery, the flaw that the artist just couldn't work out of the clay.
All right, let's hit the fast-forward button and jump ahead about 500 years. A philosopher named Plotinus comes along, and he takes Plato's basic idea and just elevates it to a whole new level of elegance.
So Plotinus introduces this totally game-changing concept called privatio boni. The idea is breathtakingly simple, but it's also incredibly profound. He basically argues that evil doesn't have any real substance. It isn't a thing. It's simply the absence of good. This idea was so powerful that centuries later, Christian thinkers like St. Augustine would grab it and make it a cornerstone of their own theology. This slide just makes the whole idea click, doesn't it? You can't scoop up a bucket of darkness, because darkness isn't a thing. It's just what happens when there's no light. While Plotinus says evil works the exact same way. It's not some dark force invading the universe. It's just the shadow that appears where the light of the good can't quite reach. And this all fits into his bigger picture of how reality works. At the very center, you have the One, which is like a star of pure absolute good. As reality flows out from that source, the perfection and goodness kind of fade with each step. And what's at the very farthest, coldest edge of that light? You find matter, the ultimate absence of good, the place with the deepest shadows.
But, philosophy is never finished. Fast forward another 2 centuries, and this other brilliant mind named Proclus looks at this really elegant system, and he finds a tiny but super important logical flaw.
Proclus's question was so sharp. He basically said, wait a minute, if everything in the universe comes from the ultimate good, from the One, then even matter, the very last thing in the chain, has to be good at its core. So how can it also be the source of evil? That's a direct contradiction. You can't have it both ways.
And this is where it gets really, really clever. Proclus's solution was just ingenious. He came up with a theory called paraihypostasis. And the idea is that evil can't exist on its own. It has no primary existence. It can only ever be a side effect, a corruption, basically a parasite that has to cling to something that is fundamentally good.
These examples just nail it. I mean, sickness is a real problem, right? But it can't exist without a healthy body to infect. Rust is real, but it needs solid iron to corrode. Proclus argued that evil is exactly like this. It's a disorder that only exists because it's disrupting an otherwise good and healthy system. It has no power, no substance of its own.
Now, to really appreciate the Platonic answer, it actually helps to see what they were arguing against. So let's take a quick look at their main rivals on this topic, the Gnostics. The Gnostics, they looked at the world and they just were not buying what the Platonists were selling. The pain and the cruelty they saw just felt way too real, too active, to be explained away as a lack of good or some kind of parasite. For them, evil needed a much more dramatic explanation. And this table just lays the two worldviews bare. It's a total showdown. For Platonists, the creator is good, and the world, even with its flaws, is the best it could possibly be. But for the Gnostics, the creator of our world was a lesser, arrogant, maybe even evil being. This world isn't a beautiful, flawed creation. It's a prison. And evil isn't an accident. It's a feature, not a bug, put there by a malicious builder.
So, after the 700-year intellectual marathon, where do we actually land? What's the final, consolidated, Platonic answer to this ancient, painful problem?
Well, we've traced this incredible evolution of an idea, right? We started with Plato's stubborn matter, then moved to Plotinus's elegant absence of good, and finally landed on Proclus's parasitic defect. Each step was an attempt to build a more and more logically solid defense of a good universe. The huge takeaway from this entire tradition is really this: evil is not a thing that was created. It is a consequence. It's the shadow that existence casts, the flaw in the execution of a perfect plan, the static on an otherwise clear signal. The universe at its very core is good. Evil is just the unavoidable byproduct.
And this all leaves us with one final and kind of haunting question. The Platonists built this brilliant logical fortress to defend a good universe. But is a rational explanation, no matter how elegant it is, ever actually enough to comfort someone who is in the midst of real, terrible suffering? That's a question philosophy can ask, but maybe only life can answer. Thanks for joining me in this one.